season 1, episode number 7. So what did I think about this episode? It was great. I love the Dean so much. She's so deliciously evil, and I had a feeling that she killed her husband. And I love the fact that she is playing devil's advocate. But do I think that she is one of the killers? No, not at all. In fact, at this moment, I have no idea who the killers are and how many there are, because I could sit here and speculate and say, you know what, it could quite possibly be Boone, which Boone seems like a likely suspect considering what happened in episode 1 when he woke up on that slab and was facing one of the killers. It could quite possibly be, say, one of the Chanels, because Chanel number 2 said that Chanel is going around killing people. She never said Chanel. She never said Chanel number 3 or Chanel number 5, so we have no idea with that one. It could be Zayday. It could be Grace. We know Gigi's involved. I mean, it could be anybody at this point. But like I've been saying, I really believe it's somebody who is the least likely to be a part of this besides Boone and Gigi. But as far as the episode goes, I don't know why I was under the impression. I read a spoiler kind of rumor little thingy online that said that we're going to get to see Chanel number 4. So I was all excited. I'm like, oh, we're going to get to see her. And then, of course, the person who I thought was initially going to be Chanel number 4 turned out to be Feather McCarthy, aka Feather McNutty. Speaking of Feather, Feather's character, I feel so sorry for her because all she did was fall in love with the Dean's husband, who the Dean obviously didn't love, but the Dean had this weird vendetta against her, and yes, it was hilarious to see her in those scenes dressed just like Feather, down to the red cap or the red tam. It was hilarious. When she pushed that radio into the bathtub where Feather was having that bubble bath, I was just like, oh my god, now who could this be? But then I was like, nah, that has to be the Dean, obviously. It's not one of the killers. But the Dean pretty much knew exactly what she was going to do as far as killing her husband, and the way that she did it completely turned all the blame away from her and towards Feather. And despite the fact that like there's no dental records that will match the teeth marks in that bologna sandwich or whatever is left on the toothbrush, because that officer or detective is obviously a bumbling idiot, but Feather's still going to remain in that mental institution because of the fact that she's stuck in that box, and she's not crazy, but that's definitely going to make her crazy. Now, as far as Chanel number 2's funeral, that was hilarious. But it's sad that her parents didn't show up to the funeral and gave regular Chanel all of the responsibility of having this girl buried and having the funeral and then making sure that she was, why did I just say having her buried? I meant having her prepared for burial and everything, and having her cremated and then having her ashes sent to Cape Canaveral. But that was horrible how Chanel was just like, I'm just so happy that this backstabbing B is dead, and this is what you get for being a backstabber and trying to cheat with my boyfriend. Like, nobody else has been trying to sleep with Chad. But on a side note, I can't be the only one who did not believe Chad when he was sitting in the bed with that goat in his boxers, playing that sexy romantic music and rubbing her belly, and just like, Chad, like, who do you... Like, is there a limit to who you sleep with? Are we going to have a scene where we see him with, like, a sheep or a hole in the wall or something? Like, Chad is a serious sex addict. But I do believe that he's still cheating because he really cannot stop having sex. Like, he just can't do it. But as far as the Dean goes, that was crazy how, despite the fact that she was almost framed for the murder of her husband, even though she did it, and then she was sent to a mental institution, she seemed to be having a merry good time, which is why I truly believe that all of this was planned, and she knew that Pete and Grace would try to frame her, so she just sat back and waited. She had all of that planned. Now, as far as back to Chanel, Chanel's so gullible. Poor baby. I love her to death, though, but when it comes to Chad, she is so gullible. But at least she found out that Hester and Chanel 3 and Chanel 5 were trying to kill her, so she was able to, number one, flip the script on them and kind of forgive them and give them those gifts. And I'm sure you guys heard the Nancy Drew reference, because obviously Emma Roberts played Nancy Drew back in, I think, 05 or 06 or something like that. But anyways, it might have been 04. And the fact that the girls could not figure out how they were going to kill Chanel was another funny thing. Okay, so I'm glad that I rewatched this episode so I could really get the gist of that conversation that Gigi was having with one of the Red Devil killers, where they were talking about how, or she was basically telling him, like, dude, you need to kill that killer. Now, the killer that she was talking about more than likely was the killer that was whining and dining Zayday and was the reason why Zayday made it back alive, because if you remember in that scene, he whined and dined her and she stabbed him in the hand with a fork. So I'm assuming one of the killers is going to have to kill that specific killer, and I still can't wait to find out who that killer is. And I think after reading a semi, spoiler and looking at pictures, that we're going to see who that killer was based on the wound on their hand. Also, as far as Gigi goes, like, Gigi, to be honest, is the perfect leader for this situation, because nobody suspects that this girl is crazy. No one is looking at her weird. No one is wondering how out of the blue she just appears and pops up, and then she involves herself into this whole Kappa situation. Did anybody check up on her? And she said that she has been planning this revenge killing for a year. But again, who is she planning this killing with? Obviously, it's Boone, because he's one of them, but I wonder who else is involved in this. On a side note, I noticed something in that scene that involved Dean, Munch, and Pete and Grace. The woman named Picasso said, or as Dean Munch explained, she paints all of the patients. So she ran, this chick, and painted a picture of Pete and Grace. So does that mean in the future Pete and Grace are going to end up locked up in a mental institution? Or in that particular institution? I started thinking about that when I was watching that scene, and I said, that's an omen. That's a really crazy omen. And in closing, I just want to know why Hester is walking around with 9 tampons. Chanel is irregular as far as her bowel movements because she and the other Chanels are ingesting cotton balls. And I guess they've all built up, or they all just build up, and she has to take Prunex to make sure that she poops, which kind of sucks. But it was a good thing because pretty much she was warned by Chanel number 2 that the other Chanels were trying to kill her. Also, I was kind of like, oh man, when the dean didn't reveal any information about the baby or the baby's connection to Feather McCarthy or Feather McNutty. But the final thing that I'm going to say in this review is, it's going to be a very big mess now, because the Chanels now believe that Zayday and Grace are the killers, because all of this killing started when they came to campus and became part of the, I think they call it the rush party or the pledge party, which it does make a lot of sense. But again, I'm not sure, but all I know is that Denise Hemphill is going to be so happy that Zayday is considered to be one of the suspects or the main suspect of the killing. I can't wait to see Denise again. I had so much fun rewatching this episode and doing this review. You guys take care. Don't forget to check the links below, rate this video, hit that subscribe button, and leave me some comments. Let me know what you thought about this episode and the season so far. I love you guys. Bye, guys. Bye.